So, hi everyone, I'm Neel Vasavada. I am here to talk about our sustainable energy results for the year so far. So for those of you who were at the meeting I did back, I believe in January, and those who aren't familiar, I'm Neel with Overdrive Energy Solutions, and we set out on a mission about a year and a half ago to bring sustainable energy into live events. In January, we came and talked, and I spoke about plans and ideas and things like that, what we wanted to accomplish, what we're trying to accomplish. And I'm here to report that 6 months into this year, it has been absolutely incredible. 2023 is not just a breakthrough year for Overdrive Energy Solutions. It is a breakthrough year for sustainable energy in live events. Here's a list of the events that we did. I'm going to go through them really quickly. And I'm going to try to keep this presentation a little loose because I want to leave a lot of time at the end for questions. So here we go. First, we did the Universal Music Group Grammy Party, and we did dressing rooms and restroom trailers. So the thing about this is that they had dressing rooms and they had comfort stations that were located directly next to the artist check-in and catering. And they didn't have the power required to run them out there. So we came in with our battery generator systems and we kept the fumes out of those areas that they didn't want them. Mammoth Fresh Tracks. Well, that was at Mammoth Mountain. It was an electronic music festival, Function One audio, if you guys are familiar. And all I got to say is the stuff works when it's cold. Best Forum Santa Barbara. It was a conference over there. We powered food and beverage, powered sponsored displays. They had an outdoor courtyard. By using sustainable energy, we were first, again, able to keep the area clear of fuel and exhaust and things like that, but also give them a lot more flexibility in how they laid out their site. So mind you, when I'm talking about all these things, the sustainable energy part is, of course, up front. In all of these activations, we actually displace fossil fuels. But what I like to talk about is all the other benefits that people don't necessarily see. So with that, we'll roll into the largest thing that we've ever done. And it's also, from everything that we can find out, the largest solar powered show ever done in the US. It was concurrent to South by Southwest on Willie Nelson's own personal ranch in Spicewood, Texas, a very high-end event called Luck Reunion. Now, they had some power on site, but there wasn't nearly enough to run what they needed. So they came to us asking us to see if we can make it more sustainable. For all of the production areas, the use of fuel was, the use of fossil fuels were reduced over 90%, 95%, I believe, actually. And we ran a full-on Stageline SL320 with a festival tech package, lighting rig, sound, backline, everything for 14 hours straight, entirely off of solar sourced energy without a single hiccup. That actually continued for 3 more days, and it was a wild success. It really proved that this is entirely possible, even practical, and not terribly expensive. I'll get to that soon. We came back to California, did Cali Vibes with our cup. This was a simple one, just giving them some site lighting. Again, untether people from outlets and generators. Stagecoach and Coachella were probably the most successful and significant back of house sustainability activation that I've ever seen myself. And what we did there was, it wasn't for the audience. It sure made things more sustainable. I think that in the end, we saved several hundred gallons of diesel there. But really what we were doing was making life easier. There was site lighting. There were these lighting towers. You can see the picture on the right shows the sunset with a tower with, you can see a couple lights on there. Those were located in remote parking lots. There were also some security cameras on some of those towers. And then they had these things called environmental monitors that were ringing the site where they kept track of noise and things like that. Previously, they had either small gasoline generators or diesel light towers posted at all these locations, and somebody had to run around and turn them on and fill them every night. With this activation, we made all of that automatic. The site lighting was on and off. It was all entirely automated. Everything was charged by solar. We greatly reduced the dependence on staff and saved a lot of fuel in the process. After that, we went to Google I/O. Google wanted to show their audience for their largest developer conference that they could be sustainable as well. They wanted to demonstrate something. And this is a Shoreline Amphitheater in Menlo Park. A lot of you may know that. But what we did is we ran their registration building. So I think it was 24 stations of printers and laptops and people lining up and music and lighting and everything like that. 3 days with the solar farm that we built on site. Currently, we are doing Dead & Company's final tour. And what we're doing there again is demonstrating renewable energy for the production while making things simpler. So they have solar that they can set up quickly on site. It takes about 5 minutes to set up. And then they can charge their gear. When it's not sunny out, they can still charge it from a wall outlet. And the big thing about this is when they are at stadium shows and amphitheaters, the VIP activations moved up to a tent. And here we give them a lot of flexibility and we allow them to have, to power a lot of their loads with renewable energy. So again, that's a summary. And let's talk about the results. Now, first thing, cornerstone of what we do is data. So almost all of our activations are fully data logged. We know every bit of energy that went in and came out, whether it was charged with solar or grid power, whether that was generator backed up, we know everything. And we can tell you that we have saved over 1,200 gallons of diesel so far. In fact, that number may be bigger because it's estimated on consumption numbers from generators that we have. And we have found out that there's actually bigger savings, so we shut those generators off. We did not need them. A lot of generators sat idle in the last 6 months, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. We deployed over 60 kilowatts of solar, so that's about 10 times what a typical residential application may be. And one thing I'll talk about a little later is we've become very adept at getting it down quickly. So here's a big result. It's technical, but for your power people out there, this should really get your attention. We have now demonstrated full capability to run any stage with up to 400 amp services, 3-phase. Now, why is that such a big deal? In the show world, we basically break our requests into 400, 200, and sometimes 100 amp electrical services. When a tour comes into a festival, when they come to a building, that's how they define what they need. We now have the capability, proven, demonstrated, to do any of those requests. So if Beyonce comes to us tomorrow and wants to put on a show on solar energy, I can sit here with a straight face and say we can do that entire show. And then we talked about real world better than expected fuel savings. Well, it was, and some of the reasons aren't so great. We'll talk about that in a minute here, and we'll talk about what we've learned. So there were some challenges, and one of the biggest things that I've kind of come up with is preparation works, planning, not so much. What's the difference between preparation and planning? Don't worry, there's a slide for that. Standby loads, major draw. At Luck Reunion, we ended up burning as much energy between 9 a.m. when they powered up the stage and 1 p.m. when doors opened, as we did from 1 p.m. until 6 p.m. The standard practice is to power everything up first thing in the morning. And, lighting directors, audio people, video people might say, well, we can't power down our gear because we need to, we might lose our programmer or something. Well, the simple fact is we don't have to power down everything. And the stuff that's the major draw aren't the things that are dangerous. So here we've identified an opportunity without using any of the gear, any of the stuff I'm saying right now, to make significant savings in our shows. And that's simply by plugging things in a way that you don't have to have them on all day. Another interesting thing is batteries are more reliable than gas and diesel. I spoke about this very briefly, but I'm going to talk about it a little more over the course of this. But everybody, without exception, all these shows I'm talking about required backups, diesel and gasoline generators as backups. And the fact is, at some of these shows, they got used for other things. At most of the shows, they were never turned on. And here's the fun part. We ended up backing up other gas and diesel generators on site. In fact, there were, very few situations where a diesel generator, and I'll talk about these in a minute, were used with our systems. But at Luck Reunion, at Coachella and Stagecoach, and at Google, there were generator failures where someone came running up dust and said, "Can you power this?" And then that's the last part. High profile events want 100% backup. So everything you're seeing here, they paid for their power twice, if not 3 times. And that, folks, is the big expense. It's not renewable energy. It's the fact that there's an unfamiliarity with it. And when people are unfamiliar, they don't trust. And maybe they shouldn't, but it's a big factor, because I told you right now that we could do Beyonce right now. But it's unlikely that they're going to, because these expenses scale. And I'm sure that the bill for power on a Beyonce show is really, really big. Well, for them right now to do it with us and have that 100% backup that everyone's demanding, it's going to be twice as much, a very, very big. And that's kind of one of the things that we need to break through now. So here's my planning versus preparation slide. This is one of the most crucial things that we learned about doing sustainable energy. And that is that I talked about this in January. I've talked about this since I started the company. People don't know what they usually use. Nobody in our business knows the power they're using. I thought, at least at the highest levels, they would. My business partner is a power guy on Roger Waters, on Muse. He's got a master's in electrical engineering. John's out in Europe right now. I think they just finished the last Roger Waters date. And when he joined our company, he was skeptical. And now he's, 100% on board. There's actually a couple live entertainment electricians, Richard Cardenas, who might be on this call. So here's some examples. We were told for something, we require 320 amp inputs. And if we were going to give them 320 amp inputs, what you get is on the right. It's a 175-pound box for each 20 amp input, and we'll run it for 3 hours. What they really needed was some artwork, a photo booth, and a check-in desk, equivalent of 3 laptops at most. Well, that's 15 pounds. So even if you add them all up, it's nowhere near 170 pounds. And you can run that setup for 9 hours. So when they did what they're used to doing, say, we need 320 amps here, that would have way overspec'd the system. Now here's an example on the other side. We were told by a customer they needed 400 amp lighting service and 200 amp audio. Well, that customer had some traditional incandescent lights in their rig. In fact, it was almost all incandescent, and they switched to LED, and then they said, okay, good. Now we can get by with 200 total. And it was really big on them, because they cut it way down, right? Well, it turns out they used 42 amps. So remember, we started at 600, and the average was 42 with a max of 75. So again, asking for the circuit breaker doesn't necessarily help us much. So what's preparation then? Oh wait, I'm going to get into a couple of these too. Okay. There's the other thing. There's also, so one of these pop-ups we did, he said, oh no, it's a simple retail activation. There's nothing much there. Nothing much except it was a hair salon with curling irons and hair dryers. And little do people know that curling irons use more power than subwoofers, a lot more. So we had to be ready for that. The dressing room trailers I talked about earlier, well, it wasn't a dressing room trailer. It was 2 dressing room trailers. It looks like one because it's one trailer, but some of these are actually like doubles, and they have completely separate electrical systems. Everything's completely separate. Oh, and then the bathroom trailer too. That wasn't originally on the list. Google was fun because they said when we spec'd it, oh, we need 8 hours of power for 3 days. And then we get there and it's like, wait, oh, no, we have these computers and things. We can't power down whatsoever. So it had to be on for 72 hours. And really, This happens at every event, and it's okay. If we're going to try to build sustainability by wagging our fingers at customers for not speccing things in a way that they're used to, we're never going to get anywhere. So how do we deal with this? That's preparation, folks. So we've evolved is how we've done it. First thing is we really put an emphasis on quick and easy setup, tear down, upgrades. These are some pictures of our equipment here. It's all modular now. So in the last 6 months or so, we've developed fully modular equipment where whether it's an inverter, which you can think is your circuit breaker, your power source, the 20 amp inverter, the 50 amp inverter, it's a 100 amp inverter, whatever it is, or our batteries, they all are in similar cases. They have similar plugins, and they all can be Legoed together to give you what you want. So when someone shows up with more, we just stack another box on top. We've done the same with solar farms. We can now put together 3 times a typical home solar installation, just 1 hour with 4 hands, the way we've designed the installations. I talked about how it's modular, so we can stack and expand as we need. Real-time monitoring. All of this equipment is live online in the internet with cellular modems on it, so we know what's happening. When there are larger loads, when someone plugs something in that we didn't know about, we know and we can adjust very quickly. Use the grid intelligently and make generators better. Well, we saved a lot of fuel with generators by hybridizing, and there were a lot of locations where there was power, just not enough. An excellent example of this is at that Warner Music Grammy party that we did. They had a single extension cord, simple 15 amp circuit that they were using, that they had run around the corner originally to charge a scissor lift. That wasn't nearly enough to run everything. But those restroom trailers and those dressing rooms were only occupied 6 hours a day. So by using that small 15 amp input to charge batteries 24 hours during the activation, we were able to avoid using any fossil fuel, even when we didn't have enough solar. And we have such a much larger demand. Hold on. Sorry, they're yelling next door, and I know we're trying to record this, but okay. So, one of the things then about preparation is, and everything being modular, and this is a downside, is that we no longer bring what is spec'd. We bring 2 or 3 times more. So, down in the bottom right, that's our trailer now. The basic operating procedure is fill the trailer. And you know what? It works pretty well, because it turns out that the more equipment you bring, the more people see it's easy, fast, clean, silent, the more they're prone to use it. In fact, Coachella Stagecoach is a great example. This is another great example. Once we had the regular grid going, people were coming up to us and saying, could you power this? Could you power that? So that, to me, is the difference between planning and preparation. Instead of now focusing on what they think they need, we prepare to fill whatever need we can, given the logistics we have. So that's it, guys. Now here's the call to action, okay? Here's the biggest problem. Generator companies, utilities, venues, sustainability concepts, consultants, all the people that we count on to give us solid advice on power, they're giving the wrong advice. And it's not that I don't think there's any, anything negative going on here necessarily. They mean well, but those old habits are so entrenched. And in order to move forward with the Beyoncés of the world, with the Bonners of the world, with big events that could absolutely benefit from this, we need to teach a few things. We need people to understand that service size are mostly stories. Why do I call them stories? Because they're passed down from generation to generation. Something that's interesting is that in a lot of places, even though electrical needs have gone down from the use of LEDs and class D amplifiers, significantly down, power needs haven't, or power spec hasn't changed in decades. You know, so it's something that's been passed on. Hey, you know what? If you're gonna do lighting, you need 400 amp service, and nobody knows this. Roger Waters, for example, had a 400 amp service for a part of their show that used a peak 84 amps, and they didn't know this for years. So we need to learn to predict what it's going to be. You can look at equipment spec sheets and kind of figure out from there. You need to use prior experience. You need to measure, or you just have to be ready to provide a lot more than they really need. And then hopefully the budget will allow that, and they can, resize to be more sustainable and cheaper later. Another huge problem, I've talked about this in many presentations, but the centralized power thing is deeply entrenched. I'm going to tell another little story that really changed my mind about this. I live in California. When I'm driving out to Coachella, or I'm driving out to Phoenix or something across I-10, we have these huge solar farms popping up, and I think they're amazing. And then someone told me they weren't. Well, why wouldn't they be? We're generating solar. And, there was some stuff about disrupting the natural environment and, what you're doing to the desert life and things like that. And I'm like, I get it, but I don't know that a lot of the people who are pushing for this care about that. And then they struck a chord. They said, why are we building these huge plants in the middle of the desert to make solar energy when it's used in the city, which has plenty of rooftop space? It's because centralized power is deeply entrenched. We use the electricity at our homes. If you can have solar energy on your home, shouldn't you? I live in one of the most, sustainable solar, we're bougie leftists here in Southern California. And there's a lot of single family homes. The vast majority don't have solar on them. There are a lot of warehouses, tons of warehouses. Our warehouse at Bigger Hammer Production Services has 8 kilowatts of solar, but the majority of them don't. It's because centralized power is deeply entrenched, and it's really hard. I mean, I've had long meetings with generator people, and to try to get them to, everything that they do is tied into the fact that they're going to have a big freaking generator somewhere far enough away that it's not going to bother people, and then they're going to run power from there. It's so entrenched that it's something that we really need to break through. First of all, for the more technical people up there, 480 volts. We need 480 volts three-phase. Why do you use 480 volts? Because, again, for those electrical people, you get less line loss. You lose less energy over a length of wire if it's higher voltage. Well, why are these 480 volt generators far away? Because they're stinky and noisy. When you don't have exhaust, when you don't have noise, you can put the power source close to where it's needed, and you don't need that high voltage. Three-phase power. Again, all of these generators, they put out three-phase power. There's technical reasons for why large generators use three-phase power. I don't need to get around to that right now. But here's the crazy part. At a lot of shows these days, everything is single phase except for the few last remaining things are, there are some three-phase chain motors out there. And there are a number of amplifiers and everything that can run in single phase or three-phase. But really, what we found are the chain motors. So why are we using lots of expensive electrical distribution gear, expensive generators and everything like that when, to run a couple chain motors? When you could do it the other way around. With battery systems like ours, you could have that three-phase power just for the things that need it and not have all the expense and complication, etc. And then the last thing is, about being cost effective, but changing habits are tougher. What does all the stuff I'm talking about lead to? It leads to Google I/O. And I should add this picture to this slide, but I want to show you guys if I have it here. I thought I had a picture of this. All right, well, that's good. I'm going through this because I'm going to want to add this picture. At Google I/O, they had a 125 kVA twin pack, so 225 kVA generators putting out three-phase 480, and they wanted to hot swap in case our gear went down. This always happens, right? So it looks cool. It's the picture on the right here. We've got the stack of gear in one spot so that they can easily unplug and plug into their generators. But it was more expensive It was completely, they ended up having to run, again, extensions, spider boxes, pagoda boxes, transformers, all of this gear that was absolutely unnecessary. It was only necessary because of the generators they chose. And then we didn't have the opportunity to make it as cost effective, as efficient, as neat as it should have been, because we're backing up this massive generator that has all these compromises. So in order to join this revolution, we need to teach some stuff. We have to break some old habits. But the good news is it's completely doable.